Okay. So when we look at the roots, when we see these words, these are all Sanskrit words. Ayurveda comes from the Sanskrit, and I'm not going to go deep into the history. There's a lot to unpack today, so we are going to get right to the surface of when we look at weight loss. But we want to understand we're really dealing with the digestive tract, and where things we're not able to absorb what we're eating, and so that causes a deficit in the body. The body is really in deficit, and the more we eat, the more it becomes what we call a toxic buildup in the body. Either the tissues are not being supported and built properly, and then metabolism isn't working. So if we look down here, we see vata, and we're going to talk about this is in Ayurveda, the dosha. This is often what people hear about when they hear Ayurveda is the doshas. Vata and apana, this word means the movement, and it means specifically in the large intestine, the absorption of the nutrients. And pitta, this is another dosha here, pachaka, that means the absorption and the breaking down of everything into micronutrients. And it's going to go through what we call the lower stomach, and it's going to go into the gallbladder and the liver. And so it's breaking everything down. And if there's some problem there, then we're going to experience those deeper problems when we have issues with weight loss. And this is kapha, kledaka. This is in the upper stomach. And this is what would happen is if we have too much mucus, too much fluids in the stomach, and then we can have a nausea reaction, and then we can have a weight gain reaction. All right, so determining the imbalances, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at these things that I shared today. So first, let's look at the body function. And when we talk about Ayurveda, you've heard of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and I'm going to explain a little bit about them today. Oftentimes, there's two things that we look at as practitioners. We look at your constitution, what you were born with, what is balanced, what is you being balanced. And what shows up is what's out of balance. And so people will often associate and they'll think that they are one constitution when really what's happened is this imbalance has been showing up for so long, often in the case back to childhood, sometimes back to in the womb when they were growing and developing. But those imbalances somehow show up at some point in our lives, and then they start to overtake as if that's our constitution, our body constitution, or our personality constitution. So right away, whenever we see the imbalances show up, this is how we want to treat it. And this is that would determine what types of foods you're going to eat. It would determine when you're going to eat. It would be determining like how you're going to eat. So that's why we kind of want to pay attention to this. So what I'd like you to do is as I kind of go through this, I want you to, if you have it circled or if you can make a little note, which one you think you fall into. And sometimes we can fall into more than one category. Okay, everybody with me so far?
Yes.
All right, so the vata, this would show up. You have an imbalance if you have gas and if the stomach kind of distends, like in a bloating type of way after eating. For pitta, if you experience burning indigestion or strong smelly gas, the gas with the vata is going to be non-smelling. So oftentimes people think that if they don't have any smelling gas, that's not a bad sign because it's not very noticeable. When the truth is, what it's a sign of is our body is not absorbing our nutrients at all. Digestion is not happening. And with kapha, if there's a loss of appetite where you don't feel that appetite, you have a sluggish digestion, you feel very full all day long after eating. It never really feels like you're not full. And then I'm going to just kind of scoot through some of these because there's a lot to digest today, but I want you to go ahead and mark down which you think is you. Constipation, that means you're not eliminating every day. There's some days that you skip. You might have loose or burning stools multiple times a day if it's pitta imbalance. There might be mucus in the stools if it's kapha. It'd be white or clear, and it would be very obvious. If you're like, I don't know, it'd be very obvious that you have an excess. There's some mucus coming out in the stool. You experience dry skin. That would be on the vata side. If your skin is more rashy, you get rash, possibly acne, pimples. There's a feeling of heaviness in the abdomen. That would be kapha. Cold, your hands and feet are cold. You don't like to be in the cold. Or heat. Heat bothers you tremendously. With kapha, it would be water retention. So there's this kind of a swellingness throughout your whole body. Vata, there would be cramping, there would be shooting, electrical chronic pain, and that's something systemically through the whole body that you might experience. Or pitta imbalance, it's burning and searing pain. So there's a difference in the pain. This is more like a chronic, ongoing, or a shooting pain. If the pain is like very burning type of pain, there's that distinction. And then the pain that's dull, achy, and it's very nonspecific. You can't really locate where the pain is happening. You just have this dull, achy feeling. That would be a kapha imbalance. If you know that you have weak bones, osteoporosis condition, teeth conditions, joint pain, fragile nails, that would be in the vata category. If your eyes seem to be red often, pitta. If you have any excess secretions like mucus or crustaceans that come with the eyes when you wake up or throughout the day, that would be kapha. There's some spotty hair loss. That means it's not really in one particular place. You feel inflammation. Inflammation is this redness, and it can be associated with pain, but not necessarily always with pain. Muscle heaviness, there's a heaviness to the whole body. Now, that's not just feeling overweight, but sometimes there is this excess, like the body feels like it's a little bit more lethargic and harder to move. If you have any tremors in the body, if the body shakes in any way, you have any tics or twitches, oftentimes the facial tics or twitches, that would be vata. Burnout means complete and total exhaustion. Or if you notice there's any tumors that develop throughout the whole body, cysts, they're benign. They're basically the fatty lymphoma tumors. Fertility issues, if that was a case ever in the past, if we've gone past menopause. Loss of patience, becoming very demanding with everything. Like you have no patience with anything. That would be pitta. Lethargy, which is that. Lethargy is sometimes hard to determine. Lethargy means it's like you not really concerned, you're not motivated or inspired to do anything. It's like, whatever. You have some energy to do it. It's just like, I don't feel like doing it. And in your history, if everybody is past menopause, when you had menses, if it was spotty, that would be vata. Excessively heavy would be pitta, and extended where your menses was longer than 7 days. Okay, any questions so far on any of that? Was I taking too long? No questions pop up?
I have, just to be clear, and I think you just touched on this earlier, but I'm assuming maybe one or two of these might be a little bit more predominant, but like on some of them, like this item was under this column, these two items were under these two columns. So there's sort of a combination of them in a different ratios. Is that very typical?
That is most typical if we're in the human population.
Okay.
Because we are a combination of many, many things. And it's up to, like, a practitioner would really fine-tunely go, and we will go, okay, this is really what's happening. This pitta imbalance is pushing these other two out of balance. And that's where the eye of a clinician comes in. For you, I want you to just kind of add up these columns, and where you see the most predominant area, I want you just to kind of notice that. You could have two columns that are like 4 and 4, and notice if that's the case too. And because we'll kind of talk about that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to move to the mind, because this is important. One, because I'm going to give you all food lists, specific food lists. And so when I do that, I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to say, well, when you identified your imbalances, was it vata, pitta, or kapha? Was it vata kapha? Was it vata pitta? Was it pitta kapha? And once you identify that, that's the food list that I'm going to assign to you. Okay, so this is the mind. Do you have an impulsive nature or impractical? It means like you just do things and there's no rhyme or reason why. You impulsively buy. are you abrasive in sometimes in your speech, or most often in your speech? You might be truthful, you might be right on point, you might be, very clear, but it's so abrasive it might be a little offensive and hurtful to other people in that state. Or is the mind sluggish? There's a lot of brain fog, and you're slow to react, you're slow to respond. Overly reactive means acting with, that impulsive nature is Vata. Intensely reacting, whatever the subject matter is, it's very intense. Or even if it's something that you feel passionate about, it seems overly intense the way in which you respond. Or slow to react. Difficulty making decisions, definitely that's a Vata nature. Judgmental, and you might, you might say the things you judge, or it might be in the mind all the time. Like as you're walking down the street or in the store, suddenly you're looking at what people are wearing, going, "Why? Why would she look like that out in public?" Or why would he choose to drive that car? That's a judgmental mind that's always going. Now, not everybody's mind is going that way, but someone who's in the Pitta imbalance, their mind is constantly judging on automatic all the time. Slow to understand. It takes longer. You have to go back and reread and reread and reread. And again, none of this, if you notice, these are all imbalances. This is not who we are. Oftentimes people, when they're in school or wherever they are in their life, in their world, these things show up, and we suddenly begin to self-identify, like, this is who I am, this is just how I am. And then we kind of make compensations. But this is not really who we are. None of this is who we are. This is us out of balance. If you identify, wherever you identify yourself, this is you out of balance. Okay, so is that everybody clear on that? Good. Vata lacking follow through, commitment. So they get very excited about things, but follow through is very difficult. Pitta is aggressive nature. And again, Kapha, they take a long time to make decisions. They do make them, but it takes a long time. They have to, really weigh everything out and come to a determination of what they think is the best route, where a Pitta will make that decision immediately. Vata is commonly ungrounded. Pitta, angry, they're not angry all the time. Well, sometimes there are. If you see someone who's angry all the time, you can go, okay, that's a definite Pitta imbalance. But if anger suddenly shoots up, if that's something that's prominent in your life or has been, it's like I suddenly get moved to anger, then you know there's an imbalance of Pitta there. Kapha, they're overly attached to things. They don't want to give up anything. They don't want to, to move, to give away something, even if they're not even using it. It's very, very difficult. They have an attachment, and thus, when friendships break up, it's very, very hard and very devastating. So they have an attachment to everything that they hold near and dear. Vatas tend to be nervous, which means they move into anxiety very. That's a common theme with them. Pittas can be envious and jealous. And again, it can be just in the mind where it just kind of clicks over. It doesn't necessarily mean something that's always manifesting. Uninspired or melancholy, that's kind of that lethargic. Those two kind of go in together. There's nothing, they're just kind of sad. There's nothing that moves them. They have energy, but they're just not moved to do something about it. Highly sensitive, and that goes, we're talking about the mind right now, so they can get their feelings hurt very, very easily. They can be moved to tears very quickly. They can be moved to tears at a story, at a picture, all those things. Again, Pitta has that critical mind, and it's more self-critical, but they're critical of others. So they're critical of self and critical of others. Lethargic for Kapha, mood swings, prone to burnout. They can really just go if you're in the Pitta, and get burned out and be exhausted and not have any energy to do anything. The Kapha can be overly emotionally internally, where the Vata is going to be outwardly expressive. They're going to cry. They're going to be, have those emotions, mood swings back and forth. Where the Kapha is overly emotional, but it's internal. They'll never show it. It'll be like stoic. But inside, they are crumbling. They are feeling very, whatever the feelings they are, they're deep and they're inside, but they do not let it show outside. Vata can be hot and cold with friends. That's that whole Vata and we'll talk about it later, is that movement back and forth, back and forth. So when they're on, they're off, they're on, they're off. They're very fierce. Pittas are very fierce with their enemies. Don't ever make enemies with a pitta. That's a very hard place to be in. Kapha imbalance shows up as very stubborn. They're not moving, they're controlling, and they want to prevent change. And so these are very important things to think about when we get into weight loss and weight loss programs and looking at the Ayurvedic lens. Understanding how you approach change and understanding where your imbalance of changes is going to be really critical. So if you already go, okay, this is where I am with my imbalance, and in my imbalance, I might be more kapha, and I get stubborn. I don't want change to happen. It's understanding that how you can break through it. Another sign of vata imbalance is when they speak very fast and it's rambling nature. Pitta speaks very sharply. They're to the point, boom, 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 and it's kind of cutting and might not sound so nice in the things they say, but they might be very truthful. A kapha will speak very slowly, methodically, and in fact, it might be the type of imbalance where it's like, can you hurry up and get to the point? Making sense? Any questions pop up? Uncertainty? Okay. Again, go ahead and, if you haven't already, calculate up how many numbers in each column you got. And then if you would care to share, not everybody has to, but if you would care to share what you came up with, if you saw on both charts, just kind of total them together. So don't tell me one chart and the other. I want you to total them together. What was the highest number? What area? Vata, Pitta, or Kapha got the highest number? Does anybody want to volunteer and share first?
I'm happy to share.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I definitely was highest in the Pitta in both, with a couple of Vata and Kapha on each one, but primarily Pitta.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
Debbie's pad, did you?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I think I leaned more heavily toward Pitta and then Vata coming in second. But what I noticed a lot of the Pitta was, especially on the mind and personality, it was more how I felt when I was working versus being retired. So I feel like as I'm going into retirement, I'm moving more from, I'm not seeing the imbalances as much in the Pitta, and I am seeing some in the Vata. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense, and I'm gonna interject here and tell you why. And so thank you for sharing that. Because when we're looking at these, we call them doshas or we call them imbalances, and we're going to relate to them in many, many aspects. And we're going to get to routines and rhythms. And one of the rhythms is our rhythm of life. And our kapha time of life is our child. From the moment we come out of the womb, we're born up until that point of puberty, we're in a state of growth and development. So we're going to see naturally more kapha imbalances will show up at that time if they show up. The pitta stage of life is the time of puberty all the way to retirement. So it makes sense. Those of us who are in that, work, the pitta is still showing up. And as we start to move into that retirement age, the time of retirement, we'll just say retirement. I mean, they didn't say that in Ayurvedic, ancient times, but that time when we are beginning to, we've been accumulating, we've been producing, we've been householders, we've been parents, we've been grandparents, all of those things, that is to build a life. And then we're now in the enjoyment, the lightening stage. It's called the Vata stage. And so naturally those Vata elements will start come up. And we'll kind of wind back around and we'll go, wow, I'm feeling a little out of balance in this area. But most of my life, you were identifying, Debbie, that I was feeling out of balance in Pitta time. So as we move into that Vata time, those Vata imbalances will start to come up and show up. There are balances. Now, we'll get, the constitution is much more it takes a lot more to go through and find out who we really are, because we have to peel a layer of these imbalances, and that's what this workshop is about today. Is we have an imbalance that we're noticing, a weight imbalance, and we want to work with that. But at the end of the workshop, I'm going to talk to you about how we can look at what your constitution is, what your natural constitution, what we're working to get you. The balance means we're working to get you to who you naturally are, and we're getting to balance these imbalances. All right, make sense?
Yes, thanks.
All right. Did anybody else want to share where they found Mary?
Yes, on that part, there's definitely a predominance of kapha, with a few pittas and one or two vatas. But I did want to just clarify on decision making. On vata, it says difficulty making decisions. And depending on what arena it's in, that's a long time issue for me. But then I noticed on kapha, it says slow to make decisions. Can you say what the difference is in those, or what the differences are?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's it kind of goes back to that same thing with the emotional, like, you know, with there's mood swings, and the, vatas are very, very sensitive, where kappas are very sensitive, but you're never going to know it. So the difference between vata decision making is they may never make the decision. They're going to sometimes, you know, just put it off because they just can't make the decision. Where the kappa is going to make a decision, they just take a very long time to make it. They are deciding if they like it. They're deciding if it feels good. They're deciding if it's too much change. They're, you know, all of those things are going around, and they don't feel pressured by anybody to make a decision. They're taking their time. It's a more methodic nature.
Thank you.
And then, so in a balanced situation, that's wonderful. But a kappa can take so much time to make a decision that they have passed a moment, they've passed up an opportunity. See, so in dealing with the imbalances, we're looking at someone who takes so long to make a decision, the opportunities are floating by.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good question. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go on to the next point. All right, so everybody has an idea whether they're strongly out of balance either in vata, pitta, kapha. Yes? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to get to, now this is the nitty gritty of what makes a successful, what has made my clients so successful, what has made people successful for thousands of years. When we talk about Ayurveda, we're talking about the most ancient texts are 4,500 years old. And that's just when they were written. So this is, and I could look, when I did my studies, and I could go back and I could look at the texts, and I could look at medical documents right now, and I could identify diseases in these texts. So the way humans operate, and Ayurveda means it's like the operating manual. It's the operating manual for this human body, this human mind organism. It hasn't changed. We are still kind of made of the same things. We have different surrounding, we have different circumstances, but when we get to the heart of Ayurveda, it's looking at how we get pushed out of balance in these basic needs. So take notes on this. We call this the GHEs, and I'm going to kind of type that out. It means the guides to healthy eating. And this is underlying, I'm going to move that up. You can all see that?
Yes.
Want to focus. I just want to focus on that for a moment. Do my little page break. There we go. Okay. And that's big enough for everybody to see?
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. So underlying, not even considering what you're eating. So there's a whole layer of, you know, what are you eating? And we'll look at the food list. But these are the most important changes you can make. These are the key changes that take some time, because we are talking about lifetime patterns. But these are the most effective. So when I work with clients, some of my clients, I design a weight loss formula where they're taking a formula that's metabolizing the fat, that it's increasing their metabolism, that's clearing their channels, that's helping the fat become sloughed off in the elimination system, all of those things. And I have clients who are not. And every single one are doing these guides to healthy eating. And these are not things that I made up. These are things that are in the Ayurvedic understanding of what causes this whole body to metabolize well. Most important, 2.5 to 3 hours between meals and snacks. And why is that so critical? It's because your digestive system takes that long to complete. If in the process you've eaten lunch and an hour later you start grabbing a snack, your body stops digesting your lunch and it begins to digest the snack. So this lunch is now become undigested food, not absorbable, and now it's building toxins in the body. Okay, same thing with the snack. You know, it takes 2.5 to 3 hours. So this is number one thing I want you to start instilling, paying attention to making sure that you have that much time between the time you've taken a snack and the time you've eaten a meal. And it's critical, because when I mentioned that the seat of our imbalances is in the digestive with the tree and the roots, anything that's not digested, it becomes toxins in the body. It doesn't come out in the elimination. Most of it does not come out in the elimination. So the elimination is the waste product. The toxins absorb and hang around in tissues that are damaged and in tissues that are weak. So this is when disease shows up. So if we have some weakness in the back, some weakness in the elbow, the ankle, the ear, the skin, this is where our undigested food toxins show up, and we begin to see a disease manifest. Okay, so number one, most important thing you can do. Secondly, is you probably heard this when you were growing up, you probably heard it many, many times, eat very slowly and chew thoroughly. So if we are gulping the food, if we're not chewing it completely, the first layer of digestion is not once it gets to the stomach. The first sign of digestion is actually smelling and seeing the food. And it turns on the sympathetic nervous system to say it's time to digest. So this is why I go here and I say eat without distractions. If we are distracted, our digestive system is off. Chris, if we're working while we're eating, our digestive system is off. I kind of know that I could catch that pitta tendency to eat and work and multitask and think they can do everything all at the same time. And some of the other pitta natures of imbalance, because I suffer the same thing. We must not be distracted because our digestive system won't turn on. This idea of multitasking is a myth. It's a myth, and it's a conception of those in the workforce who want us to work more and more and do more and more. But what we're doing is we're completely shutting off our digestive system in that moment of needing to eat. And it's critical that it's on. Observe the food. Notice how beautiful it is, what it looks like. Again, the digestion starts with our senses. Smelling it and seeing it and possibly hearing it being cooked. Possibly. But smelling and seeing are very important. Smell the aromas, notice the aromas, because then there's the olfactory that goes in and it triggers, says, food is coming, and they recognize, your olfactory recognizes those tastes that are critical for digestion. It recognizes and it sends codes. It says, oh, this is happening and got to get ready, turn it on. Savor every bite. There are 6 distinct tastes that should be in every single meal. And this 6 tastes are the chemistry of what digests our food properly and metabolizes it properly. Now, within each one of you, let's say, Debbie's got strong pitta tendencies, Chris might have strong vata tendencies, Mary, and I'm just saying this out, just examples, and Mary might have strong kapha tendencies. The 6 taste combination will be different for each one of you, but they all must be present. So here's a little quiz. Well, just pop quiz. Who knows what any one of the 6 tastes are?
Sweet.
Yes.
Savory.
Yes. Now, savory is what we call, let's say it's salty. And there's a distinction. I know in the culinary, let's say in the French colony, they've identified savory as different than salty. And in Ayurveda, salty is very, very important. These two in particular are very important, and I'll tell you why. So it's not necessarily savory, but we'll say salty. Anybody else?
Spicy?
And we call it pungent. So I'll just put that here, spicy. We distinguish it in Ayurveda from spicy because everything we use spices, because there are going to be sweet spices, there are going to be salty spices, there are going to be the other 6 flavor spices. So we usually say pungent is that hot. It's the hot. It's the heat.
The sour?
Yes. All right, we got 4. These last 2 are the hardest.
In the cooking world, they often talk about unami. Is that in Ayurvedic? Is that one, or is that one of these?
That's the one I was talking about, the savory. You were the unami, which is in the salt lineage, but not particularly.
Okay.
And that's the, what the French came up with, that wonderful from bone broth, making bone broth. Anybody else?
Would tart be the same as sour?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
I'm going to give them to you. Okay, bitter. Bitter, that's kind of in the greens category. And astringent. And I think you'll be surprised where you get most of your astringents from. Fruit, beans, crackers is a good example. And I'm going to say those because, a lot of people. Now, sweet is not cookies and ice cream and cake and pie. Anybody have an idea what sweet might be? What foods might we get the sweet taste from? Sweet is building. It's what builds our tissues. It's one of the most important things to build quality tissue. Meat, nuts, fats. Okay. And salty, I think that's kind of pungent, spicy. Sour, there can be some fruits that are sour. Lemons, of course, right? So these 6 tastes need to be present in every single meal that we eat so that our food can be fully and completely digested. And our nose recognizes what those tastes are. It goes, oh, these are the tastes coming in. And it knows where those tissues need to go. So what happens when we have a weight issue, whether it's overweight or underweight, we have an excess in one of these or more of these flavors. Now the sweet, this is where people tend to have sweet indulgences. They have sweet cravings. And what's really happening, if you notice, what's really in the sweet category, meats, nuts, and fats, there's a growth issue. The body is sending this message, it wants to grow. And what happens, it knows that the way in which the body grows, this is one reason why I said in the Kapha stage of life with his childhood, they love the sweets, right? All of the kids love the sweets typically. Because the body is growing and changing, and we don't need as much as we get older because our body isn't growing and changing at the growth rate it was as we were young children. And so, but what's happened is there's an absorption issue. We're not absorbing the nutrients that we need, so the body is sending messages that it needs to grow and it needs nourishment. And it's not getting nourishment. And where's the quickest source of nourishment? The sweet source. The sour source is also the building source too. So this is often why you might hear sweet and sour together are very desirable. A lot of people love the sweet and sour because it is the growth, and it is what is can be the first indication of a craving when the body isn't getting nourished thoroughly. All right. Any questions pop up in your mind? Okay. Next important part is, this is very hard. This is probably one of the hardest because, and what makes this not as hard is if we are doing this, if we are waiting 2 to 3 hours between meals, if we are eating very slowly, if we are eating without distractions, we're definitely not eating when we're driving. We're not eating and watching something. We're not eating and doing text or email or anything like that. It's a very, let's say, calming environment. It might be a nice conversation, not a combative conversation. We might be out at a restaurant and it's a very lovely interaction. We don't feel tense. It doesn't mean you're eating quietly in a room with no sound whatsoever. It's not eating like in monk style, but it is eating in an environment that is feeling joyful, feeling happy. You observe the food, you smell the food, and this is where we can get to the point where we're eating to 50% full. The other next 25 should be liquids so that it's helping. Now, as I grew up, my grandmother always said, never drink with your food because that will cause a digestive problem. And there's truth in that, but the other side of it is your body needs that fluid, 25%, to articulate it and not cause a systemic dryness. So oftentimes we'll have a dryness if we don't have enough fluids with the food. And this is what helps us aid in the digestion. So our stomach should only ever be 75% full. And I'm going to show you a visual in just a minute. So that means drink 1/4 to 1/2. That's 1/4 is 2 ounces, 1/2 cup is 4 ounces of liquid with each meal, no more, because then it will stop the digestive process. Let me just share this nice little. Close that. Here we go. Okay. So why is this so important? It goes back to the same idea of why it's so important not to eat less than 2.5 hours between a snack and a meal. It's because the body can't digest the food. If your stomach is more than 75% full, it's not digesting the food. And therefore it becomes undigested. Not all of it, but a great amount of it becomes undigested, unabsorbable, and will begin to have toxic buildup in the body. And that will come out in aches. That's why we were looking at, do you have achy feeling in the body? Does it feel ache? Is there heaviness? Is there swelling in the body? And that's a big indicator that there are toxic buildup in the body. Or is there redness, inflammation in the body? Those are all indicators that there's a toxic buildup, and the root cause is this undigested food. Even though we are gaining weight, we're gaining weight for multiple reasons. Stress is a big reason why our body can suddenly slow the metabolism down, and whatever we're absorbing, it can be absorbed and built into the fat tissues, building not quality fat tissues. Fat tissues are extremely important for our metabolism. In fact, that's where the metabolism happens, is in the fat tissues and the muscle tissue. But if we're not absorbing our nutrients, and we're excessively building one tissue, it's not quality tissue. And so the metabolism slows way, way, way down. And that's how, because it says, well, we're in a state of stress. The stress hormones come in and say, we need to build more fat because we're going to have to store, because stress in the body at that mammalian level, that mammalian brain, means we're not going to have food for a while. Winter is coming, right? And so that's what the body's mechanism takes over. And stress to the internal mammalian brain means there's going to be no lack of food. And so it automatically starts building that fat tissue, which is lower quality tissue, and it doesn't have a high metabolism, which fat tissue we need to metabolize. All right, I've said a lot of things. Is anybody's head spinning off, or is anybody questions pop up?
I'm just a wee bit confused on the 50 and the 75% on what I thought I heard. But is the bottom line, you want to feel 75% full, and the proportions of that 75% are that amount of liquid and then 50% from food? Or
You're 100% correct. You read me correctly. You heard me correctly.
okay.
And so there's subtle indicators. The subtle indicators are a little bit more challenging because we've spent a whole lifetime of not paying attention to them. If we were brought up as children to pay attention to the little bubbles that come up. You see these little bubbles? And there's kind of three little, we call it silent burps. I'm going to send you this document and you can kind of read through it. Here's a nice little visual of like what happens. Let's say your stomach is this, and if there's enough room because it's going to churn, it's going to be able to digest. But if that bag is completely filled out to the max, it can't churn and it can't do any of the digestive that the stomach is supposed to do. So then it sends it to the small intestines and the liver, and they go, what? What am I supposed to do with this? This is just, I'm sending it to the toxic zone because I can't do anything with it. It's not churned into the nice soup that I like. So there's these little silent burps. There are three. You're not going to hear them if you're watching TV. You're not going to hear them if you're on your chat or you're in your text. You're going to feel it. And once we get to the you're 100% full. You went way past it. If you feel like when you're slowing down and you go, oh, I feel that little bubble. It's going to start when you're 50% full, 75% full. And if you pay attention to that second bubble, it's going to show. If the loud burp comes out, yeah, we went too far. This takes longer. But here's the key. You know, the burps are a little bit harder to get in tune with, but you know, they're there. If you like to try it out on your own, you can try it out. But what happens, one of the biggest reasons for overeating is that we're eating too fast. And that's why I said the number one thing you can do is slow down, because the brain is way ahead of the body's satiation. The brain is, I'm sorry, it's the other way around. The brain is 20 minutes behind the stomach satiation. So the brain is like, oh, I am starving. Eat, 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 eat. I'm still hungry. Eat, 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 eat. It hasn't kicked in. There's nothing emotionally going on here. It's a physical phenomenon because we've been trained to eat fast. Eat fast at breakfast, eat fast at your lunch, eat fast at your dinner. We got to go, 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 go. In our culture, we're not trained to slow it down. And when we slow it down, it allows the brain mechanism to catch up with the stomach and go, oh, I'm noticing I'm completely full. And that feels really good. But if we're just gulping, eating fast, that mechanism is not, it's shut off. So that's why eating slower, smelling, tasting, seeing, noticing those food along the way are the little indicators that tell our brain, oh, digestion is happening. I'm satisfied, I'm full. And it's not an emotional thing, it's a biological thing going on. There's other emotional factors involved, but these are the biological things we can have control of immediately. It's harder to control the emotional factors than it is the biological factors. All right, I am going long.
That's so interesting though. Thank you.
It's, you know, there's a lot. When I work with my clients, we spend weeks going through all of these. These are things that you can do on your own, but they are challenging. And but they're also very fundamental. There are things we should have been taught and brought up with, and this is the way we should have just been living, as opposed to kind of backtracking. And I'm just noticing that everybody seems to be in my category, age category, the retirement age, over 55. And so I want to tell you that all of my clients, in fact, I have two that were in their 30s, one was in their 20s. We worked with the weight and they were very successful, but the majority of my clients are all well into their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Same thing, same span. You know, we get older and people say, it gets harder to lose weight. It's impossible to lose weight. If you didn't do it when you were younger, then forget about it. Not true, because I saw the same success with every age category when they fully immerse themselves in these basic things. this is an important thing that you can take control of. And I sent you the Food Mood Elimination Journal. It was a download on the welcome page. Did all of you get that?
Let
I
me
need
get
to
that.
look, I'm not sure.
Okay, not to worry. It was in the welcome when you signed up. And if you didn't download it, again, I'm going to send you this follow-up, which is going to include these links, and you can download it again. It's a Google Drive, so you can either save it to your desktop. Please make a copy because it is on my Google Drive, and if you start typing in there, then it changes the template. So make sure you make a copy. And you want to pay attention. This is really important. Like I said, how you feel when you eat is more important than what you're eating. And so I'm going to, show that. But these times a day, these daily routines are really, really important. So looking at the times of eating. This is when our metabolism is adjusting. And it's going, okay, the body has slept, the body has restored. This is the body's natural healing is at sleep time. And then it has a time for building and restoring through consuming the energy. So breakfast should be between 6 and 8 a.m. It should be a light meal, the second lightest meal. Lunch should be sometime between 12 and 2 p.m. This is the highest metabolism. And what is the number one thing people in the working stage of life are doing? They are skipping lunch. Kids in school are skipping lunch. They are destroying their metabolism at a very young age already. And another reason why we're seeing childhood obesity. I used to work in schools, and it was astronomical between my 23 years in the school system to see even more obese children by the time I was at the end of my 23 years. The weight problem had gotten even worse when they were talking about it 23 years ago, 25 years ago. It was a problem, and then it just seemed to get exponentially worse by the time when I was looking at the amount of students that were overweight, obesely overweight. Skipping lunch is a number one problem here because it ruins the metabolism. This is our highest metabolism. This is absolutely, if we don't skip one meal, this is a meal never to skip, is lunch. Dinner should be the lightest meal of the day because our metabolism, this is when it has started to come way, way down. And this is what is typically the heaviest meal of the day, is dinner, right? We hold everything till we get to dinner, and now we're really working against a big, huge wave because the metabolism is really dropped down. And so when we eat the most between these hours of the day, we are destroying the metabolism again. So we want to take advantage of our body's natural metabolism. And then once we get past this 8 o'clock hour, oftentimes people will, pull on the snacks. This is when we should not be eating. If anything, drinking, very light teas or milks or something that's, light, soupy, brothy, something, but definitely not the sugar consumption that is typical, and I would say in the American and the European diet. And what happens is then people will eat after 10 o'clock at night. Well, that's even worse because that's the time the liver and the gallbladder need to function. They need to turn on and they need to do their filtration system. And if the body is digesting, that is not going to happen. If the body is awake and up, that is not going to happen. So extremely important that this food consumption is small and gets lower and stops around 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock would be, something like a milk. Okay, so I have a lot of things here. I kind of want to jump because I'm looking at the time. I want to honor our time. One of the most important things we can do is jumpstart and kind of really start cleansing the body, start changing, is do a cleanse. They're called seasonal cleansing. Cleansing should be done every season, moving into autumn, winter, moving into spring, moving from spring into summer, because the weather is changing and the types of food that we should be consuming have changed. So if we're eating those heavy types of heavy root vegetables, possibly meats, those heavier foods that we should be eating in the winter months, the autumn, winter months, if we're eating those in the spring, guess what? The body has a different metabolism and it's heavy, heavy, heavy. And this is when a lot of the weight goes on. Weight doesn't come on in the winter months. People think it does. It's accumulating And there's a tendency for it to come on, but it doesn't really come on till we get toward the spring, when people continue to eat that way. And then we have this excess water. Spring has a water buildup in the body, and it needs to be purified and cleansed. So this is one of the best ways. It's one of the oldest traditional ways. It's called a Khichdi cleanse. And I'm going to show you the recipe. I'm going to share the recipe with you. So if you have right now, when we did the imbalances, if you had a Vata imbalance, you're going to want to do it for 3 days minimum, 5, no more than 5 days. And what it means is you're eating a mono diet. I'm going to share my recipe here. This is the autumn one. And it's mung bean. It's a traditional Indian lentil. It's a split yellow. It's the yellow one, not the green one. And basmati rice. These two together are perfect protein. And basmati rice is highly densely protein. Unless, let's see, I think I had someone with celiac. Does anyone here have celiacs?
I don't, but my clinical nutritionist that I've seen is a big proponent of skipping gluten.
Oh, well, that's, in Ayurveda, that depends on how you metabolize it. And mostly people who overconsume it, they can't metabolize it. And so that's one of the problems that shows up is there's heavy gluten, but sometimes there's vital gluten, which is really good. And one of the first indicators that there's a digestive problem is they can't metabolize that gluten, or they're over consuming it. So in that sense, I agree, but in completely avoiding it, I don't agree. Basmati rice is extremely digestible and highly dense in nutrient. And I think, I'm not certain, but I think even my client who has celiacs is fine with the basmati rice. So these are the, and we talked about the taste. All the 6 tastes are here. And you can take a look at that ingredient list. And so if you have more of the pitta tendency, you would do it for 5 to 7 days. If your imbalances are pitta, 5 days are good, maximum 7 days, no longer than that. If you found that when you circled all those out of balance and it came out more kapha, you would do minimally 7 days, maximum 10 days. That means there's much more, we got to get more of the impurities, there's more toxic buildup possibly. And I'm not going to go over the directions, but because I'm going to send this all to you. And if you have any questions about the directions, then definitely I'm happy to answer those questions. Any questions pop up right now?
Did I miss it, or is there one further down for the Kafka?
Oh, kapha, yeah. They call it kapha, so it's not like we would pronounce in the United States ph with the ph. It's kapha, and it's between 7 to 10 days. So minimally 7 days, maximum 10 days. This is very nourishing, and you're going to eat it for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. There's snacks involved. If the pitta, so the pitta gets the snacks. The kapha can eat could eat 2 times a day. Sometimes a kapha only wants to eat 2 times a day. Sometimes 3 times, but they're smaller. They could also eat in 5 times with that 2.5 hour spread between them. So they could eat a breakfast, a mid-morning snack, a lunch, a mid-afternoon snack, and a dinner, and just have different amounts with each one. The pitta type imbalances gets 2 snacks, pumpkin seeds, nice roasted pumpkin seeds, and a yogurt drink, which I'll send the recipe as well. Now, what this does, this is going to really slow the digestive system down so that it can clear and cleanse and not be having all kinds of different foods come in. So there's a natural cleansing that's going to happen. You might have more elimination happening if you have a tendency to have constipation, maybe not eliminating every day. You might notice that suddenly your elimination starts to kick in and you're starting to eliminate every day. It might be a little softer elimination. It just depends on how much toxic buildup there is or excess waste buildup there is in the colon and how long it's been. This is a nourishing cleanse. It's not a drying cleanse. Typically, people who are on juice cleanses or green cleanses are the very nature, they're out of balance and they have too much dryness, they have too much coldness in their system. And so those greens and those juices are actually drying them out and causing even more problem in the elimination digestion cycle. This is very nourishing and it's balancing those 6 tastes which are critical to restart the digestion, restart the metabolism. Ghee. Does anybody not know what ghee is? Ghee is clarified butter. And so anyone who has a dairy intolerance, this does not affect. I have lots of clients who they thought, I can't eat dairy. And it's not true because clarified butter means that the solids that would cause you to have a dairy intolerance or a dairy reaction have been cooked out. So my clients with celiacs, my clients with dairy intolerances, dairy this, dairy that, have all, in fact, they love the ghee and they felt how good, what it is. It's one of the most nourishing fats to the whole body.
Where do you get some of these things from, like fenugreek or garam masala?
Yeah, so at the so a lot of I don't know if you have Sprouts stores, Whole Foods for sure. Whole Foods are much more on the expensive side. Sprouts a little bit less expensive. Stores that have
like an
stores,
Asian store or no?
Indian.
Oh, Indian. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, if they have an Indian grocery store, you can also order them all online. All of
Oh,
these
yeah.
can be ordered, but I like to go to my local health food store that might have a bulk aisle that has spices. If you have a local health food store, they're going to have these things. These are very
Local
common.
health food
If you
store.
have a local Indian store, they're very common. And if you have a Sprouts store, you can get all of these at the Sprouts.
Okay. Thank you.
And Whole Foods as well.
Whole
We
Foods.
have a local co-op, and all of these are available at our local. And I know up there in the Washington, Idaho area, they have a lot of co-ops.
Oh, yes, we do. Come to think of it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I had much, much more to share, but we're getting to the end, and I think that I've given you a huge amount. Everything that I shared today, I'm going to send you. I'm going to stop sharing right now. I'm going to send you a document. But one thing I do want to offer, and this is offered to everyone who signed up, is that I have a little program running, and it's by application. And as I said, all of these things are things, if you practice and you really focus on what is important to you, and you're feeling like this is important to you, it is something that can be done. These are basics, and we should have been brought up this way. But it can be challenging. And so I'm offering for you to apply to work with me for 4 weeks. And what you would get is the first session is an hour, and I'll do a whole health intake, whole health history intake. And I will do a report of finding, what I find as far as the imbalances. I design unique formulas. So you'll get a unique formula, whether it's digestive. You'll tell me if in the application, you'll see what it is you most want to work with, whether it's weight loss, it could be sleep, it could be anything that seems to be the most primary cause of concern for you. And I can design a formula, and then we'll do a follow-up and just see what kind of changes happen. And that's going to be, it'll be 4 weeks. And so you could start doing your cleanse. I'm going to send you the link for the application. In fact, I can put it right here. And then if you want to go ahead and apply. So I only have 4 spots open. It's because I am going to be working with you like I would a one-on-one client. And there are 5 of you here, but there are 14 people who signed up. And I know they're all going to be looking at the replays too. And I would love to work with every single one of you. So I just want to stress to, if it sounds like something that's speaking to you, then go ahead and apply. It's very simple. It's not like you don't have to give me your full resume. It's a very simple like survey. I'm gonna send it to you, and you're just gonna click the responses, and then submit it. I'm gonna put it right here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the Kichari, how much do you eat and of it? And how much does that make, that recipe?
That recipe, it makes about a day and a half's worth. If you're eating it
Okay.
by yourself, it's about a day and a
Mhm.
half. So that full
Okay.
day, and then breakfast, and then maybe some lunch. And I never want to say amounts because, again, remember we talked about you have
Oh.
to pay attention to that 75% full. But let's talk practical terms. Let's say, play around with how you're feeling with half a cup, 3/4 of a cup, a whole cup.
Mhm. Okay,
See,
yeah.
see what seems to make, if that's something that you pay attention to, pay attention to that, and go ahead and go through all of the things, smelling it. Part of the digestion is going to be making it. You're going to, you're going to begin to smell all of those things. We're not used to making our own food. And it's not to say that we should be making everything, but as we move and change, we should be making the majority of our food. But if you're going to follow these principles I shared with you, the guides to healthy eating, it's not the what you're eating, it's how you're eating, it's when you're eating.
Mhm.
Whether you're going out and eating pizza with your friends or you're enjoying a meal at a wonderful restaurant, it doesn't have to be you're eating this kitchery and you're eating everything that you think of. I'm going to send you the food list too. Once you respond to me and tell me were you vata, pitta, kapha, I'll send you the food list. So when you come off of the kitchery, you're going to have condiments, wine, meat, all those kinds of, grains, vegetables, fruits, nuts, oils. It'll have the list that, let's say you're showing as a vata imbalance. It's going to be the vata food list, and these are the foods that are going to bring you to balance. If you're showing a pitta imbalance, I'm going to give you the pitta food list. Once you come off the cleanse, once you come off this mono diet, whether it's 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, these are the foods that you should begin to incorporate. So if you have a kapha imbalance, I'm going to send you the kapha food list, and these are the foods you should begin to incorporate, which are going to help you come back into balance, and that weight, and it's going to be important for that weight loss to continue. There's nobody who has done a cleanse who hasn't lost any weight, 1 pound, 2 pounds. Make a note of this. It's healthy to lose between 1 and 2 pounds in 1 week. Anything more is really moving into the excess. Now, it could be more if there's a lot of waste that is coming out. So if you're having heavy elimination because there was a lot of backup in your colon, because this in itself is a cleansing type of thing, there might be a few more pounds of weight because we carry waste weight in our colon. Not everything comes rushing out clean. Stuff has been up there for years. And sometimes it will come out with the cleanse. So, but typically 1 to 2 pounds of weight per week is a sustainable and reasonable, and it's the most long-term sustainable. The body resets, and once it understands what the new weight is, it only desires to keep you at that new weight. So the same principles apply for someone who's underweight. They're going to reset so that they're understanding they have to increase their food intake because they feel balanced. And our bodies, when there's excess weight, it's going to understand this is how I feel balanced, and this is the amount of food I need to feel balanced. And that's not something that you're going to be thinking about. It's something that overtakes in the body because you've got a whole new set point. Okay. So
Great.
any questions? I just wanted to share this one more time because this is important to me, is that you are successful, and that's why I wanted to offer this free experience. It's called the experience of working with me because, you know, it's one thing to hear these new things that I'm sharing with you, but it's another thing to kind of go through with a practitioner. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So you'll get 1 hour full health history intake with me right here in my Zoom room, my clinic Zoom room. You'll get a uniquely designed formula, and then you can choose if that's something you want to purchase. I always, all my clients get it at the wholesale discount price. It's not anything I'm making money. I have a herbology lab where I went to school, and they design the formula, they package it, and they mail it off. You'll get a 30-minute reported findings session with me, a 45-minute group session. So everybody who's been working with me through this program will all meet together, and we'll have a group session, and then we'll do a 30-minute follow-up session to see how everything that I recommended, how it's working, and if I can give you any tweaks and changes and continue you on your path to success and weight loss. So that's a total of 4 weeks with me. Knowing attendance is mandatory. It can't be something that you're going to get a replay. It has to be us one-on-one working, or otherwise it wouldn't work. So knowing that ahead of time. And then the survey is due on the 20th. So I put that link in the chat box. You can get it right now if you wanted to go ahead and apply. Just copy and paste it into your browser. And then I'm also going to include it in this follow-up document. Any questions I can answer right now? Yes,
I have
Mary.
one on liquids. Did I cut somebody off?
Nope.
Okay, good. So I get it that we're supposed to drink very little during our meals. I tend to be thirsty a lot, and maybe part of it's a mindset. It's like, yeah, keep hydrated, drink a lot of water, but I do like drinking liquids throughout the day. In this particular model of thinking, are you supposed to limit your liquids like throughout the day, or no problem if you like to drink a lot?
No, and hydration is very, very important. So that wasn't really something we got into. Oh, I do want to say this. One super important thing is during the cleanse, another one of the other things I want you to do, and I'll remind you of this when I send you the document, is sipping hot water or warm water every 15 to 20 minutes. That's another part of cleansing the body. So those two things together, that mono diet, and in between like the quarter to half a cup, the liquid that you would eat with the meal, throughout the day, every 15 to 20 minutes. Now that's very hard. It's very hard for people to successfully do that. But if you are trying, and most of the time, every 15 to 20 minutes, it's called cell rehydration therapy. The skin on a cellular level will be much more supple, much more everything, your whole body. Systemically, when we get into the Vata stage of life, which we're all in right now, drying is number one. Everything becomes much, much drier. We're in the Vata season, winter, autumn, drier, right? And so this cell rehydration, it's like vibrating, reconstituting the cells. So it's going to be a super important part of this whole cleanse. An element. And again, we're not robots, we're human beings. We have all kinds of things that shift and change, and doesn't mean if you don't do anything perfectly that you are failing. You're going to try and show up and do the very best you can. And whatever you're doing something. You're doing something good for yourself, however it shows up for you.
Thank you.
Great. Did I answer your question, Mary?
Yes.
So
Yes.
when I clicked on the link that's in the chat, it takes me to like your Eventbrite page.
Oh, yeah, I put the wrong one in. That's the free gift.
Oh.
That's the class. Let me get the right one in there. Gosh darn it. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Technology. I'm going to put it right in here. So you can look at that one too. There you go. I just put it in there, Chris.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, let me show you this real quick if you guys are not. So when you get your free, and I know, Mary, you said you were interested in the Kundalini yoga.
Mhm.
I want all of you to come to my class. I would love to see all of you there. I just want to show you when you go ahead and where is it? Huh. I thought I had it up there. Let me click in my own chat box. Yeah. Yeah, so you guys can all see that?
Yes.
So it'll come up. This is my page. It's your free ticket, and then you just select. You can see the times down here. You select one of these days in the next month that are good for you. Let's say you selected the 29th. I mean, you could select the 22nd if you like, and then it'll come up. It'll say $25. That's just the normal rate of the ticket, but if you select once you select it, your free ticket discount pops right up.
Oh, and that's what's on Eventbrite. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, that's what's on Eventbrite. So when you check out, I was just going to show you that because sometimes it says free and then the amount pops up, but you see automatically once you check out, the free will pop up and there's no payment. All you have to do is just register just like you did for this. Just put your name, email address, and then it'll send you the Zoom room link, which is a
Cool.
different one. It's my yoga Zoom room than this one.
Thanks.
So I hope you will all attend, and I hope you all will apply to work
Thank you.
for 4 weeks. I would love that.
Thank you.
Thank you all for showing up. It's been wonderful
Thank
being
you.
in the group with you, and I look forward to seeing you.
Thanks a bunch.
You're
Thanks so
welcome.
much for the
Look for the
information.
follow-up email and documents from me.
Okay.
I'd love to have a copy of that painting to your right. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. All right, go out and enjoy your next meal thoroughly. Enjoy it, smell it, see it, taste it, love it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.